Excel 2007, Data Security. I want to make sure that you know all the ins and outs of securing your data. We're going to talk about encrypting it or scrambling the information, digitally signing it to help ensure that your information is not tampered with. We'll talk about protecting it via a password, so only those with the special password can even open your spreadsheet. And then we'll talk about all sorts of various resources that exist within Excel to make sure that your system is up to date with the latest patches and that you only trust the proper types of information to come in and to leave your PC. Let's launch into an expense report. Our goal here is to secure this file. Chances are in your environment, when you're dealing with Excel, you are dealing with private information, whether it be your personal finances or some sort of proprietary sensitive information within your company. So you want to make sure it is secured and, of course, that you don't have viruses on your system that are wreaking havoc. So we're going to do a lot of security measures here, and then we're going to talk about ways that you can optimize Excel. So most of these items are in your Office button. We're going to come back to this over and over again. In fact, most of them are here in your Prepare area. The first thing we're going to do is encrypt this document. When you encrypt a document, what you're doing is you're scrambling the data. And it's tied to a digital certificate on your computer. Whether you pay for and you have one on your system, or within your corporate network, all your PCs have digital certificates. Only those that have the same digital certificate encrypted in the header, this is in the background, you don't have to do this, only those that have the proper certificates are going to be able to open up and unscramble this information. So when we choose Encrypt Document, we can give this a password. So people who have the passwords and are involved in the knowledge of encrypting and have the right digital certificates can open this file. This is just simply asking me, I can't talk and type something serious. This is just simply asking me to confirm that password to make sure that I know what it is so I didn't mistype it either time. Now, anytime I open this, it's going to prompt me for that password so that my PC is going to unscramble it and display it to me. But if someone else sits down at my computer, they're not going to be able to view this ever so important expense report. Something else we can do is set up passwords to restrict permissions for this specific file. And we talked in a previous nugget about protecting sheets and locking them, and we covered this a little bit. So I just want to remind you that you can restrict access by actually typing in the email addresses of users who are going to be able to read this document and those that are able to change this document. We refer to this as security by obscurity because if their email isn't noted, they cannot open this information. It's an implicit deny of being able to open. If you have read permissions, that means you can open it, you can't modify it, you can't print it, and you can't copy the content. You're only able to read it or view it. Now, change permissions mean that someone can read it, edit it, save changes, but they can't even print it. Maybe that's a good thing because printed copies of certain sensitive financial information really shouldn't be distributed in your organization. Someone could just go to a copy machine, make a copy, and you'd have no control over that at all. I'm going to go ahead and click Cancel here. Let's go back into the Office button to Prepare and take a look at adding a digital signature. I mentioned before with the encryption that encryption is based off of a digital signature. So again, if you're in a corporate network and you have a digital certificate on your system, when you add a digital signature, that will be combined with your digital certificate. Now, what does a digital signature do? It's not a scanned-in copy of your pen on paper signing your actual name, your John Hancock. No, it's actually a mathematical algorithm that figures out something called a hash. On your system, there's a hash created, and then when you send it to someone, the recipient does a mathematical algorithm on this file. If those two hashes match, then that tells the recipient that this file did in fact come from you. If it doesn't match, if the hash doesn't work it out to be the same, that indicates that the file has been tampered with, and that can tell the recipient that they need to do some background checking. especially if the file has macros in it. Macros are based off of VBA, Visual Basic for Application, and a lot of nasty viruses or worms can be spread throughout desktops based on VBA code. So if you have a digital signature and your recipient opens the file and the digital signature is invalid, that can tell them that someone has gotten in the middle and added some nasty code, maybe a malicious virus in there, and they shouldn't open that file because that would run the worm or the virus on their own PC and cause problems. How do you add a digital signature? Well, you've got a couple options. If you already have a digital certificate on your system, you can simply select OK. If you don't and you're in a corporate environment, you should check before you go out and purchase one. If you're a home user, you can go out to Microsoft Office Marketplace. And Microsoft gives you some recommendations for some vendors. You can go to their website and you can purchase the digital signature. And of course, that vendor will give you more information on how to install the certificate. And I said digital signature, that's based off of a digital certificate that you install on your system. So we have digital signature here. We also, on the insert ribbon, have a signature line. When we click here, we can choose a Microsoft Office signature line, or you can add the signature service, which, notice, takes you right back to this page. So let's choose that Office signature. This time we're going to click OK. Suggested signer. Well, I'm on Andrew West's computer, but I know I have a digital certificate. CBT Nuggets. Suggested signatures title, I'll just say employee. Suggested email address would be, we'll just say worker@company.com. Instructions, well, verify the content you are signing is correct because your file will become read-only once it's signed. Allow the signer to add comments in the sign dialog, sure. Show sign date in signature line. Okay, look what we got here. This is something I'm going to put at the bottom. This is not the digital signature. It's simply a visual representation to let you know and to let your recipient know that this has been signed in the background. Because a digital signature is not something you see, it's something that both PCs, both machines calculate. It's nice to have a visual representation that it's been signed. I can double click on this, choose OK, and now I can actually sign that. I can say, you know, CBT Nuggets or Andrew West or whatever I want to put there. Purpose for signing the document, data integrity. You could say it has macros or something like that. When I choose sign, it says you have done this successfully. If the document is changed, your signature will become invalid. Okay, so there's my signature. It's actually saying it's invalid right now. I might not have that certificate installed appropriately, or there's some issue there. So I would have to do some extra research. And again, if you're in a corporate environment, you're going to want to make sure that you okay this with your network administrator or whoever's in charge of this information. In the real world, you're probably going to want to go out and pay some money and make sure that you have the right signature. Here I have my signatures view area, my certificates that have been issued. If I look at this, I can see my signature details where we just were. We can see the signature setup that I went through, and I can remove the signature if I want to. Notice I'm in read-only mode. If I click on my ribbon, everything's grayed out. Why is that? Well, because I signed it. And I don't want to sign my document until I'm ready to distribute it, because it's saying, hey, I'm sealing this up. I'm sealing this envelope. It's ready to go. I'm not going to change it anymore because this signature is verifying that this file isn't going to be changed anymore. So with read-only mode, that's not going to do us any good in this situation. So I'm going to remove the signature. Do I want to permanently? Yes, I do. It's been removed and the document has been saved. Okay. So this visual representation, notice there's no signature anymore. I can simply delete that. Now let's add a password to the overall file. We added a password here for encryption. We restricted permission, but I don't want anybody to even double-click to open this file unless they have the password. To do that, I go to the Save As dialog box. I keep the file the same name because I'm simply resaving this file, but with a password. It's in the Tools area in the bottom left-hand corner under General Options, Password to Open versus Password to Modify. I can have two separate passwords. Password to Open means if someone has that password, they can open it. It'll be in read-only view. They can't make changes to it. Password to Modify means, well, they can not only open it, but they can make any changes they want, including printing it, deleting it, whatever it is. That makes sense to me. I could do read-only recommended, and then they're just going to really get a choice to choose read-only, but they can still modify it if they have that password. Always create backup. That's for fault tolerance, so that you don't ever lose your file. If this file becomes corrupt, you'll still have a backup of it. I don't want to say you'll never lose it, because if you were to drop your computer, if your hard drive was to fail on the same drive as your primary document, well, you really would lose it. I'll choose OK. Re-enter password to modify. This is just that confirmation, making sure I didn't type it incorrectly. All right. Now we're going to save it. It already exists. You want to replace the existing file. I do. I want to save over the file that has no password with this file that does have a password. Yes. Let's test it out. I'm going to close this. I'm going to go to Open, and I'm going to open up my expense report. Hey, it's protected. What's my password? All right. Enter password for write access, meaning to modify. Otherwise, I can choose read only, and then I'm not going to be able to do anything to it. I'll choose OK. So now it's not in read only. I can make changes if I want. None of these items are grayed out. I've got full party rights in here. Okay. Now, I just want to show you how to remove that password in case you change your mind. Back to Save As, same file name, Tools, General Options. You simply remove these passwords. Okay. Save. Save over it, yes. All right, now there's no password protection on this file. I want to bring up 2 points here about security. Number one is when you create a password, that should be a complex password or a strong password. Those are synonymous terms. The idea is your password should have uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters in it, or at least 3 of those 4 items that I just mentioned. A strong password is very difficult for a dictionary program or a brute force attack to be able to figure out what that password is. It's not impossible, it's just more difficult. To create a strong password like that, though, sometimes it's very difficult to remember that. So that might be something that you use some sort of pattern to create a strong password, or it might be one of those super important passwords that you'll actually write down and you store in a safe place. Lock it in your desk. Maybe even put it in another Excel file and you lock that Excel file with a password, and that password is something that you don't write down but you absolutely remember. Keep in mind, if you create a password for a document and you lose that password, your document is gone, okay? So you have to be serious when you're creating these passwords. Now, the second thing I wanted to mention has to do with the encryption. When you encrypt a document, it's encrypted when it's stored on your system. But if you were to send that across your network, maybe you're saving it to a file share out there somewhere, it's going to be transferred as clear text and then stored again as encrypted. So you want to make sure, if you are working with very sensitive information in a business environment, that you have a talk with someone in the networking field, your network administrator, your IT director, whoever handles that, and talk to them seriously about security and what they can do to make sure that your documents are going to be secure and safe. Not only so that the information isn't read, but also for your accountability. There are legal repercussions of certain confidential information being stolen within companies, so be very careful about what you're storing and how you're storing it. Now let's take a look at the Security Center. Back to the Office button, to Excel options. In here, I'm going to resize this dialog box a little bit. I can't help it